Alright, hi, hello, welcome everyone to Mono Fire Viability Rankings. This is Scarlet and Violet, and it is post-home, so we got all of these guys right here to look at. Why can't you see my cursor? I feel like you should be able to see my cursor. Am I just blind? No, you can't. Oh wait, never mind, I just need to put them there. Okay. Anyway, quick disclaimer, this is, my opinion. I'm not like top 10, top 100 in monotypes, so like, maybe this doesn't apply, like, tippy top ladder. I don't know, but so I feel like a lot of you guys are either going to be, tippy top ladder and you already know what you're talking about better than I do, or you're going to be trying to get into monotype, trying to learn mono fire, which I think is a really fun type, even if it's not like the best. I think someone put it as like C tier or something, but it's not like the best type, but it is really fun, especially if you're really into offensive teams. And so that's what this is trying to help. I'm trying to help people who are trying to get into mono fire as opposed to people who've already mastered it. Anyway, so yeah, if you disagree with my takes, because I might have a few weird ones, then feel free to comment. The engagement always helps. Just don't be rude. Too rude. You can be a little rude. Anyway, so let's start it off with we got our tiers. So you got unviable, which means I cannot genuinely think of a reason why this mon should be used over any other one. It's not even a good mon in the first place. Niche means that you could think of a reason to use it. It's got some redeeming factor that can make it useful. It's just not good enough to be anywhere near mainstream. But if you're like really struggling with one particular Pokemon, this could be the solution. You've got good, which is kind of like they have a lot of flaws, but they're never going to be a direct detriment. It's always going to have some sort of value that you can put on the team, even if it's not the most value you could possibly get. Great is something that's are Pokemon that you're going to see on a lot of teams. These Pokemon are going to be everywhere. They provide a lot of value, and they're not quite essential. They're not essential, but they're good. They're really good. You could even say they're great. And then finally, the top tier is splashable, and a lot of people do viability rankings where the top tier is absolutely essential. You need every single mon in the top tier in order to succeed. And I don't really subscribe to that thinking because I feel like there's a lot of different archetypes and viable teams that you can make that don't include some of these tippy top tiers. However, the top tier is Pokemon that if you have a gap in your team, you got 5 out of 6, and you don't know what's on the last one, put in one of these 4. Spoiler alert, there's going to be 4 S tiers. Anyway, they're splashable. You can put them anywhere and they're going to do good. So, we're going to start off with unviable. And they're really bad. Worst one is Pyroar. By the way, this list is mostly ordered. A few of them I don't really know because they were bad and I didn't want to keep playing them, and a few of them I don't really know because I'm bad at playing them, even if they're good. So yeah, Pyroar, he's bad. You've got Rivalry, which is usually, in my opinion, more RNG. It means there's less control for you, and you can't, and that generally is worst thing. So I would rather have Unnerve than Rivalry. So Rivalry's worse than useless. Unnerve is pretty much completely useless because very few people use berries. And Moxie is a phenomenal ability on a base 68 attack Pokemon. You've got a good physical attack move pool, a mediocre to bad special attack move pool, not a lot of status moves that for some reason I felt like that wasn't the word. Don't have a lot of status moves, so you don't have a lot of utility. There's really nothing that this Pokemon does well. It's not defensive. It's okay fast, but doesn't have enough power to be a Scarfer. It doesn't have an ability that benefits it. So yeah, don't use Power. He's shit. And then next up we have Flareon. Where are you, Flareon? Right here. Flareon. He's the second worst. Flareon's a funny guy. I don't really know what to do with him because on the one hand, I like him. I like the concept. Guts, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal, but he's a fire type, which means he can't be burned, which means you need to use Toxic Orb instead of Flame Orb, which means it puts you on a way tighter timer with a way bigger downside. In addition, his only good fire physical stat is Flare Blitz. Flare Blitz not a very good move on something that's already on a timer. At best, Flareon might get 1 or 2 kills before just dying. He doesn't have a defensive profile except for special defense, which is pretty good, but it's not good enough when you're already on a timer. And the speed tier is really bad. And so you really need to get a Trailblaze before you can have any potential of getting a couple kills before dying. So he usually just ends up being a sack and a waste of a team slot. Just a complete waste. Because of how quickly he dies. Which is really unfortunate because I love the ability Guts. Some of my favorite Pokemon to use have Guts. Like, I built a team once that had like 5 Guts users. And I would just court change Toxic Spikes onto my own side and go to town. But it's just not worth it with Flareon. He's the worst Guts user in the game. Next, we have Camerupt. Camrupt's really only going to be ever viable on Trick Room, which is not good on Fire. You've only got 2 Trick Room setters, and there's no reason to use it, because there's very few other Pokemon that actually take advantage of it. The set you would run would be Specs, Eruption, in Trick Room, because Eruption's disgusting, and Specs is good. But you can't keep Trick Room up long enough. There's Flash Fire, especially Heat Ran, absolutely crushes this Pokemon if you're Choice Locked, and if you're not Choice Locked, you're not hitting hard enough to actually make any difference. So yeah, Camerupt doesn't have really any other utility besides being neutral to some good types because it's ground, but it's also 4x weak to water, which is bad. Yeah, he's not great. It's really the speed and the mediocre defensive profile that's doing him in. So yeah. Also, he gets completely outclassed by Torkoal. Torkoal absolutely shits all over Camerupt. And finally for D tier, we have Colossal, who just barely slips out of not having any niche, because he is the only guy that has Spikes, Rocks, and Rapid Spin. So if you look at it on paper, he's phenomenal. He's got all the hazard setting, all the suicide leading you could ever want. Except he's slow. He's abysmally slow, has a very strong defensive profile, at least on the physical defense side, which means he can wall stuff, but his typing is one of the worst typing combinations in the game. There are 2 4x weaknesses, which is just really bad, especially when one of them is one of the best types in the tier, that's water. And since a lot of water types that are somewhat prominent, especially since the fact that there's so many water types, everyone's going to have a good special attacker, and you're not surviving anything on the special side, even with a max other HP stat. So yeah. You would think that because of its amazing utility move pool that it would have a niche, but unfortunately it just doesn't. Its roll compression does not outweigh its abysmal downsides. Alright, moving up to C tier, we have Oricorio, who I was kind of debating on going between unviable and niche, but I've actually won a game or 2 by with a Mirror Herb set. If we take a look, Oricorio has the ability Dancer, and if you can switch in on a Quiver Dance or a Dragon Dance or Victory Dance from Hisuian Lilligant, then you can use Mirror Herb as well as Dancer to get 2 times the opponent's stat boost, as well as having Quiver Dance by yourself, and you actually have a really solid utility move pool. You actually have mostly a good utility move pool. You can, if you're expecting Dragon Dances a lot, you can max out attack. Well, granted, you don't have a lot of good physical attacks. None really. You can, with enough boost, you can still make it up. But you've got Revelation Dance, which is a phenomenal move, because it's, you know, it's better if you have Terra, because it actually matches your Terra type, which means it's literally just a better Terra Blast. But you've also got Roost, Swords Dance, Tailwind, Taunt is really good, Quiver Dance is amazing. Defog is, I think, one of the only 2 Pokemon in the tier that gets Defog, the other being Talonflame. That's the big problem. This thing is completely outclassed by Talonflame. unless you're trying to copy a dance. I suppose you could also run boots on it and use it fully utility, but then, again, why not use Talonflame? So yeah, switching between niche and unviable, I can't really decide. And then we've got Moltres, who would be phenomenal if they still had defog. I believe Moltres completely lost defog in this gen. You can't see it over here. And so while they still have, Roost and U-Turn, Will-O-Wisp, and some good attacking moves, along with a solid 125 attack stat, the speed tier isn't quite enough. The stats are there. It just doesn't have defog. If it had defog, it would be just as good, if not better. It would be better than Talonflame, because it has a defensive profile, it has good utility moves. But it doesn't have defog, and so it's not better utility than Talonflame, and it's not better attacking than Charizard, because most teams will have Sun on them, and you can set up Sun and go to town with Charizard as a Scarfer, as opposed to Moltres, which just can't do the same thing, especially since it's going to have less attack and speed. So Moltres, while being a fairly solid Pokemon by itself, is unfortunately just outclassed by higher tiers. It desperately needed to keep defog, which is just kind of sad that it missed it. Next up, we have Arcanine. Arcanine is just one of those mons that it doesn't do really anything special. It's got a fairly even stat spread, so it can do more or less whatever it chooses. It's got Intimidate, which is good. It's got Flash Fire, which is also good, although you won't see Flash Fire as much, given this is a solo fire type and you don't usually click fire moves against other fire types. So Intimidate is really going to be the ability you go with, but he's just kind of lackluster. He doesn't bring much to the table that someone else does. Hisuian Arcanine. So there's no real reason to use him, other than the fact that he actually gets Morning Sun, which is good, Roar, which is good. So you can actually use this guy as a defensive utility mon, and I think there's some value to be had there. I don't know where you'd get the team slot to use it, but there is some value to be had there, which is why I'm going to put him in niche. Next, we've got Houndoom, which I actually found to be surprisingly competent at what I wanted it to do. I put specs on it and just use it as a kind of a wall breaker. I don't know, the stab combination is nice. You don't get a lot of good dark coverage in Fire, because if you look, you've got a few mons that will have dark coverage, but really Houndoom is going to be the best one for that because it's, dark type. And Flash Fire is not a bad ability. Early Bird is bad, and Unnerve is bad. But you've got you got okay speed, and you got special type. But the difference between this guy and Pyroar is you have the secondary stab for Dark Pulse. You have all these fire attacks. You have Shadow Ball and Sludge Bomb, which are fantastic coverage. If you wanted to go into physical attack, which is better than Pyroar's, and when Pyroar has a physical ability, you've got like Sucker Punch. You've got Fire's stab, you have Flare Blitz, you got Flame Charge, you got Crunch, which is, you see what Chimpow is doing with Crunch. It's crazy. So yeah, Houndoom has some legitimate niche as either Specs or Scarf. It's not, breaking through everything with crazy power, but it might have the coverage that you need to deal with some threats that you just aren't checking very well otherwise. So, I'll put him in niche. Then there's Delphox. Delphox is a funky guy. It's got Fairy move, which is really rare. I think only Iron Moth has Dazzling Gleam. And so Delphox is just kind of there. They've got a fantastic utility. They've got, I think that I had Wish. Yeah, you've got Wish, you've got Trick, Will-O-Wisp, Switcheroo, which is basically just Trick. You've got Reflect and Light Screen, so you could use this as screens. You got Magician, so you could yoink items without having to use Trick, which can be really big against some mons. Like if you're fighting something that's like crushing you with like Life Orb or something, you can take that. and severely nerf their power. Banned or something. I don't know. There's a lot of options that you have on Delphox, but the problem is it's just an okay typing that is completely destroyed by Dark, which is one of the most powerful types in the tier right now, or in the metagame right now. And you don't have enough stats to make it really worth it. The makings are there to be just barely good, but there's not quite enough. There's no special sauce. Unlike Armor Rouge, it's the same typing, has a lot of the same options, little less utility, but it has a base 125 attack. It has a phenomenal ability in weak armor, and which takes care of its pretty low, all things considered, speed. It's got defense and HP, which means you could use it as a physically defensive pivot. It has Destiny Bond, which is a really funny move. I love putting Destiny Bond on Mons, because oftentimes you wouldn't expect Armor Rouge to have Destiny Bond. I think it's more of a Cerulege thing. Armor Rouge tends to go more utility. It's got Light Screen, it's got Reflect, got Taunts, Trick Room, Trick. It's got a lot of the things except for Wish that Delphox had, but it just does it a little bit better. It's got better coverage aside from Dowsing Ling, which is really nice to have. And it's got a higher attack stat and weak armor. So yeah, Armor Rouge can snowball, but I think it's worse than Cerulege, and I don't really think it has much going for it other than the fact that it can do well. But I think it's too inconsistent to really be worth using. Next up we have Charizard, who I've actually found a lot of success using Charizard as a where'd Charizard go? There he is. Using Charizard with a Scarf, 4 attacking moves and solar power in the sun, and then you just slap its speed up all the way, lower its attack, and then suddenly you've got a pretty powerful attacker in the sun. The problem is he's fired flying, which means while he does have a ground immunity, he is 4 times weak to rock, which means Stealth Rocks absolutely eviscerates him. And so yeah, you have Solar Beam, Fire Blast, Dragon Pulse, which is really nice coverage, especially if you're fighting a Dragon team, which you don't have a lot of Dragon coverage. Unfortunately, Walking Wake still just absolutely tramples fire in general. Sun or Sunless, Walking Wake just absolutely goes to town. But you've got options, and you've got like Air Slash or Hurricane if you're feeling like a 50% accuracy move in the sun. But yeah, he's got power. You know, you got your 317 multiplied by 1.5 from solar power, even if you're losing a little bit of health, and you got Choice Scarf to augment the average speed. And yeah, I've had a lot of success with him. I really enjoyed him, but he's got a lot of weaknesses. He desperately needs sun, and he desperately needs Stealth Rocks to not be up, because boots just means you're not fast enough to get what you need to get done. But yeah, I can't put him any higher than this because of his weaknesses, but I do like using him, and I have found a lot of success with him. Next, we have Salazzle, and there's only one thing that Salazzle is good for, and that is Substitute, Protect, and Toxic. And put, like, Black Sludge on or something. And you just go speed, HP, and you Toxic them once, hope you survive, maybe get a Toxic on your switch in or something. Then you just stall with Substitute and Protect. If they don't have anything that can get through it, or you get a free Toxic off, then this is one of the most annoying pieces of crap to deal with, because you have Corrosion, which means that you can poison steel types and poison types. So nothing, unless it has an ability that blocks Toxic, like Magic Bounce, Hatterene, or Golden Go, with Good as Gold, then there's really nothing that they can do to not get chipped by Toxic. And yeah, she's just super duper irritating to fight. It's way more of a problem on poison, but on fire, where you don't really have a lot of options for annoying cheese and stall like this, there's value. Salazzle can genuinely wall stuff just by being irritating, and it can give you a lot of momentum if you can keep an annoying threat off the field. But they're just throwing an attacking move in case someone taunts you. I would probably go Sludge Bomb to deal with fairy types. And next up we have Ceruledge. I don't really think I need to go much into Ceruledge. They've got Shadow Sneak, which is nice. They've got Swords Dance, which generally Armarouge doesn't run, because Armarouge is a special attacker. It's just physically attacking Armarouge, more specially defensive. It got Shadow Sneak, which is nice. I've seen Ceruledge get sweeps, but it's absolutely eviscerated by Sucker Punch. I feel like Ghost is a really bad secondary typing to have right now, with Dark being so prominent and so popular. I don't think a secondary Ghost typing is a benefit, even if it comes with a stab. Which is something you'll see in just a second. So I don't think I need to go much further into Ceruledge. It's just a slightly better version of Armarouge with a lot of the same downsides. Next, Tauros Paldea Blaze. I actually, in pre-home, I had a ton of fun running this mon. It gave me a surprising amount of cheesy wins. Wins that I really didn't deserve. I didn't use the Intimidate. I actually used Cudshoot and Citrus Berry in order to get a free bulk up. And then I would just use Raging Bull to get rid of screens, which was really popular pre-home especially. Not as so prevalent now. You got Close Combat. And then you can either run Earthquake for problematic matchups, or Outrage if you want to surprise someone who's really not expecting Outrage. Because Outrage is like really... You would expect Earthquake, but I personally ran Outrage because it was weird. People weren't expecting it. You run Speed and HP and just bulk up a couple times and go to town. It's a good Pokemon, and it was actually a really good answer to like Dragapult. Dragapult was really scary pre-home. It was one of the most common Pokemon, and it's something you always had to worry about. And so this guy with Outrage absolutely slaps the shit out of Dragapult. So yeah. Unfortunately, it's... in my opinion, it's fallen off post-home. It doesn't hit quite as hard as you need it to survive in this much faster post-home metagame. And a lot of the things that I used it to check aren't as relevant anymore. Ghost has fallen off a lot. It used to be, I think, the most popular type pre-home. It's now a lot worse, especially since Dark has risen to prominence. And Flying is another phenomenal type now. They got so many good Pokemon in home. And Tauros is part Fighting, which means it just gets ripped to pieces by Flying now. It's just kind of sad, because I really like them on, but it just gets too countered, and it's just not quite good enough. Next, we have Hisuian Typhlosion, which is the funny set up Sun, put on a scarf, and click Eruption until everything dies. And honestly, Scarfers are, I think, the most important mon to have in any fire team is your Scarfer, because fire relies heavily on speed control and just clicking buttons to win. And there's no button stronger than Eruption under Sun. That being said, Stealth Rocks is a problem when you gotta run a Scarf. And what I said with Ceruledge, partial Ghost typing is not very good right now. You've got way too many Dark types running around with Sucker Punch. And while the secondary Ghost typing has a lot of big benefits when you can just spam Shadow Ball or Infernal Parade all over the place, in the end, it's still a Scarfer. Its best button to click is still going to be Eruption in most cases. unless you got like Heat Ran on the other team. And so it's just not worth it. Just run regular Typhlosion. There's no real good reason to run Student Typhlosion. And finally, for B tier, we have Talonflame, who is I'm very on the fence about Talonflame as far as B or A tier. So on one hand, Talonflame has a fantastic ability. Priority is huge, really in every... in most metagames, priority is really big, but having a more or less nuke ready to drop at any point in time in Bravebird, or if you're feeling particularly crazy and you think you've got a good way to keep off rocks, you can run a no item, or like an item that you'll get rid of after one time, and use acrobatics. So just like continuously have priority, and if you think you can, kill. But you don't get any item with that, which is a big downside. And I think Talonflame needs boost because of its partial fire, because of its fire fighting typing, and 4 times weak to rock. But it's got Defog, which is, amazing. It's got Roost to try to heal off some of that Brave Bird damage. It's got Flare Blitz and Brave Bird, which can really just do a fantastic job. It's not a passive, it's a defogger, but it's not at all passive. And if you have something that's threatening a sweep, you can save it, you can Gale Wings Brave Bird them to get them in range of other priority or a Scarfer or something. It's a defogger with a one-time use nuke. And I think that's a very powerful thing to have. On the other hand, once it's been damaged, it's a lot less relevant. It's hard to get a Roost with something with 0 defensive profiling whatsoever. The only thing it really has going for it is it's got speed. It's really freaking fast. It's actually the fastest fire type in the metagame. So Talonflame is good. He's really good. I just don't think he's quite good enough because of the Gale Wings nerf. I think if it didn't have the Gale Wings nerf, it would be phenomenal. Alright, next. Bottom of Greats is... Did I just move someone? No. Bottom of Great is Skeledirge. Skeledirge was one of the biggest yes, please, I will take this pre-home. But post-home, it's just not as relevant. It's not defensive enough to really take good use of its unaware ability. And I never enjoyed the Slack Off set. I actually ran an Assault Vest set to counter other Skeletors, because other Skeletors was a big problem for my team pre-home. But since then, Skeletors, it's amazing if you can slot it in, and there are times where it absolutely save your bacon. Especially like if you've got a Belly Drum Azumarill, which has fallen off a lot under Sun. This thing will wall it all day, and it'll be able to revenge kill it. You can... Unfortunately, it's just not fast enough to really make a lot good use out of Torch Song. And you can't, curse to race because you're Ghost type, which again is not great right now with Sucker Punch and all these Ghost moves being thrown around. So, I suppose you could go like Throat Spray and go really heavy into attacking. But there's just... You can't quite get everything you need, but the defensive profile is good enough that this thing can be a really good pivot if you need it to be. So yeah, bottom of Greats. Next up, we have Heatran, who is amazing on Steel, but this is one of the things that I said at the start. Pokemon. There are 2 Pokemon in this ranking that I am bad at playing that I know are good, and I just can't make them work. You got Heatran, has an enormous 130 special attack, and it's 4 times weak to ground, but you can mitigate with an air balloon or good ground immunes to try to bait that. But you just click Magma Storm or Lava Plume or Fire Blast or Earth Power is really good to have. Dragon Pulse, Dark Pulse. You got so many buttons that you can just click with that, or you could make it really, really defensive and utility based with Stealth Rock and Will-O-Wisp Taunt. You have Power Gem, which is a really good coverage. So there's a lot of things this thing can do. I just can't seem to make it do what is right for me, which is unfortunate. But I know it's good. Everything on paper says it's good. I'm just bad. Next, we have Scovillain, who is a really shit Pokemon. It is just carried by the fact that fire desperately needs something that can resist water, or at least be neutral to water. And Chlorophyll's a phenomenal ability. It's a shame it's poo-poo. It's got bad speed, it's got mediocre special attack. You can use Growth, which is nice in the sun. You've got Solar Beam. You've got Giga Drain, which is really nice. Now you got like Flamethrower or something. I have a Scovillain on my current favorites Sun team. As well, that's the one with the Charizard as well. But it's just, it's really good if you can get it in and get the sweep, but it's not quite good enough. It's only good on Sun. It's really good when you have Sun up, but it's only good when you have Sun up. And it won't even outspeed some really fast Scarfers. Like, this thing with maxed out speed and whatever, maxed out speed in Chlorople, it's still slower than Regieleki with max speed. So, like, then again, a lot of Regielekis don't run max speed because they don't need to, because there's not going to be Regieleki Ditto very often, and it outspeeds almost everything else naturally. But there are some really fast Scarfers that'll outspeed it. I mean, it's so frail to get one shot pretty much by anything, even some water type moves in the sun. Next, we have the other one that I can't seem to make work proper, and that's Volcanion. Obviously, Volcanion is huge. Water immune in a water dominant meta game in a water weak type. Fantastic. You've got dummy thick stats, a fantastic special attack, once again, like on Heatran. A phenomenal move pull. It just, I don't know why I can't get this thing to work, because everything points to it should work well, I suppose, other than the speed, which is a trait Heatran shares. But, like, I don't know. I can't get it to work, but I know it's good. All of the stuff on paper says it's good, and it's really useful on Sunless to take care of water types. But I can't get it to work. Anyway, next we have, I think from here on up, these are Pokemon that I would put on most any team. There's, 7 Mons. Oh, I did remove Pokemon Houndoom. Yeah, so there's 7 Mons left, and these are 7 Mons that I would put on most teams. There's not really any bad reason to have any of them. There are just some that are just a little bit worse than the others, and that you can't fit on every single team, or almost every single team. So we've got Typhlosion, who in my opinion is one of the best Scarfers in the tier. I don't need to go over this too much, because I already covered it with Hisuian Typhlosion. But Scarf, Sun, Eruption. There's really nothing else to say there. Typhlosion hits like a truck. I have actually 6-0'd teams by going Torkoal, clicking Yawn, hard swapping to Typhlosion, and clicking Eruption until everything dies. It's just that easy. Or you get Walled or Priority. Priority is the biggest way to take this thing out, or faster Scarfers, or past Paradox Pokemon with Proto Speed. But when it works, oh my god, does it work well. Next, Rotom Heat, who, along with Salazzle, I think is the singular... up ahead of Salazzle, I think Rotom Heat is the singular most irritating Pokemon to deal with for anyone. I like to run actually Lagging Tail or Scarf and Trick to cripple another Pokemon, and then I'll run Will-O-Wisp, Volt Switch. I'll run a really either defensive or special defensive profile with maxed HP, and then, like, I don't know, whatever coverage you want. I think I usually run Hex in case I willow them first. But Trick is the big one. Trick on Rotom Heat, which is strong enough to survive to get the lagging tail off to someone else, unlike someone like Delphox, which will probably die. Or you could do completely different. You could do Trick and have Volt Switch, and then instead of Will-O-Wisp and Hex, run dual screens. Or don't even have Trick. You don't need Trick with dual screens. You're going to run Light Clay. This is the best screen setter for Fire. You've got reasonable coverage. You could go full, like, all-out, bulky special attacker. Like, this guy is surprisingly really good. You have a Nasty Plot, which is obviously on all the Rotoms, but, like, Nasty Plot, this thing can be, I have never tried it as like a setup sweeper, but it's not a bad bulky setup sweeper. It's a shame that Fire already has a phenomenal special setup sweeper. I think you guys all know which one it is. But yeah, Rotom Heat, it has the, I think, best utility of any Fire mon. With its ground immunity, typing isn't bad. It hits... If someone leads like Pelly, this thing is strong enough to survive a Pelly Surf in the rain, and one-shot it back with a Volt Switch. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, I think Rotom Heat is probably my favorite defensive Pokemon in this tier, but it's not good on every team, especially if you already have like Talonflame or other utility mons. You don't need all the utility it provides if you just need more buttons, because sometimes you just need more buttons to click. And finally, for A tier, we have Iron Moth, who is another fantastic Scarfer. Iron Moth's stats are through the roof ridiculous. You've got 140 special attack, which if we look is the highest special attack in the tier. Only by 5, but it is the highest. And 110 speed, especially once you max out the speed with a speed boosting nature. 350 speed with a Scarf is faster than almost everything in the tier, even if they have a Scarf as well. Quark Drive is basically a non-factor, unfortunately. If this thing was a past Paradox Pokemon, it would be absolutely Uber. It would absolutely be Ubers. There's no way it wouldn't be Ubers. You could run Specs and just like lower your special attack a tiny bit. It's like you would go down to like 349 special attack, run Specs, and then put the rest into HP. Or actually, you'd probably you gotta do HP or special defense, one of the two. And that would be insane, but you've got coverage for days. You've got Energy Ball, you've got Dazzling Gleam, you've got Sludge Wave, and Fiery Dance. And if you don't want to try to set up with Fiery Dance, because Fiery Dance is really good to set up with, you could go Fire Blast for the less accuracy, but way bigger nuke. You could go Bug Buzz if you're not running Volcarona. You could go Psychic if you're not running Volcarona. You could do Hurricane if you're a lunatic. But it hit like a truck. But like, there's so many coverage options. Discharge is one I played with, but Energy Ball I found like was way better. It's just almost perfect. But it's 4 times weak to ground. It's so frail that if you don't kill something, because you have to run Scarf, pretty much. I don't think you'd ever run Specs on this. It's fast, but it dies so quickly. I don't know, you could run Specs, but I find it has more value as a Scarfer. I don't know, it's crazy, but it's not quite crazy enough to be S tier, because the last 4... Also, I'm sure a lot of you are looking at Harkonine, like, what crack is this guy on? Like, I agree with all of his takes so far, except for maybe, like, a couple of them. But why is Harkonine S tier? Oh boy. I got a little bit of explaining to do, but explain I will. Bottom of S tier, we've got Torkoal. Probably what most people would automatically say is S tier. Unfortunately, Torkoal it's got phenomenal roll compression. You've got Sunsetter, you've got Rapid Spin, you've got Rocks. Where's Rocks? Rocks. Rocks. There we go. You got rocks. You got yawn, which is huge to have on a, like, if you're leading Torkoal with drought and heat rock, heat rock leading Torkoal with yawn, then you can just hard swap into whatever you want. If you think they're going to stay in, tank a hit with Torkoal and then swap. Like, Torkoal's crazy, and then you can, like, body press. I usually use body press. The biggest problem with running body press is you can't touch ghost types. You just have to yawn them and swap out. Yeah, no, Torkoal's crazy. The only problem is there are some times where you don't want to have Sun. Like, if you're fighting a Dragon and they got Walking Wake, Torkoal is dead weight until you can kill that Walking Wake. And so you can't get hazards off, usually. You can't yawn, you can't stealth rock, you can't use him because sometimes your Sun can be turned against you. Like Flutter Mane. Dude, I got swept by Power Gem Flutter Mane twice in a single day, and I nearly lost it. I rage quit so hard. Because Power Gem is such an obsolete coverage on Flutter Mane, but 2 people were using it, and I didn't realize they were, and so I sent out Torkoal, and suddenly I've got 8 turns of Power Gem Flutter Mane sweeping my entire team, and there is nothing I can do about it. Because Flutter Mane is faster than all of my Scarfers. I don't have enough priority because this tier unfortunately just doesn't have, or Fire doesn't have enough priority to take out Flutter Mane and then still be able to keep going. But Torkoal's great. He's compressed so many rolls. You got Rocker, Rapid Spin, Yawn, and Drought. It's so much roll compression, which is why he's S tier, but he has downsides, which is why he's bottom of S. Next, Volcarona, who is the only Uber in Fire type, and Volcarona's Uber for a reason. A lot of people will run max speed, max special attack. I actually prefer to run max speed, max HP, and run a bulky Morning Sun substitute Quiver Dance sets, and you can sometimes swap out the substitute. Substitute has saved my ass a lot. And then you run, like, I usually use Bug Buzz because Bug is a better is a good offensive type, and sometimes, and if you already have so many things that can click fire moves. But Bug Buzz, Psychic's not bad. I like Psychic. Giga Drain, if you really need the HP, if you want Giga Drain instead of Morning Sun for HP, and to deal with those pesky water types, like, and Flame Body's a great ability. Like, if you're fighting a Azumarill and they Aqua Jet into you under Sun, and they get burned, and suddenly Azumarill's a non-factor. You don't have to worry about them anymore. Boots is almost the only item you can do if something is trying to be, a bulky setup sweeper. You can't have them taking 50% from rocks. It's just not okay. And so, yeah. The Volcarona is insane. Or you can just run Quiver Dance and 3 attacks with max special attack. You could do whatever you want. Volcarona goes to town. But I like running this because you can switch into most special attacks and be perfectly fine. Next, Harkonine, who is, in my opinion, the best Scarfer in this tier. And as I said earlier in the video, Scarf is the most important Mon on any Fire type team. You need a good Scarfer, and there is no better Scarfer than Harkonine. You've got close combat, extreme speed. Some people may question why extreme speed on Scarf, because priority. If you get someone down to like someone's trying to set up with like a Dragon Dance or something, you get them down to like 30% health, and then they Dragon Dance, and suddenly they're outspeeding your entire team. Even with a Choice Scarf, you got extreme speed. Extreme speed is that last little bit you need often to close out a match. To close out a match. And then, of course, you've got Flare Blitz and Head Smash. And because of Rockhead, you don't take any recoil. Head Smash is an absolute nuke. If you think your RNG gods are going to bless you today, you can click Head Smash 6 times and win a battle. I am dead serious. It is that strong, especially if you're running against a slower team. A lot of people will use Choice Band on Harkonine and use it as a wall breaker as opposed to a Scarfer. And there is, in one of my favorite teams, a Sunless team, I actually use Choice Band Harkonine because I already have Iron Moth, which is a fantastic Scarfer. And I don't need, more fast physical attackers. I need really heavy hitting physical attackers. And so I will run Choice Band Harkonine. I don't know. There's if you want to be able to switch between moves, you got Life Orb. You're not taking any recoil, so you got 10 turns to do whatever the hell you want. You got Expert Belt if you want a 1.2 times with literally no downside because you've got good coverage. Close combat is for Heatran, by the way, and Dark types as well because Harkonine go Burr, and you don't have, because I use it as a Scarfer, I don't care that it's Fire Rock, which is, as I said with Colossal, at the bottom of the tier list, one of the worst types in the game. Who gives a crap? You got speed, almost everything anyway, and anything you don't have speed, just switch out and come back in later. It's super slashable. It hits like an absolute truck, and there's a reason why I have it in S tier. Most people don't agree with me. I think they're crazy. You click Head Smash or Flare Blitz and you win. Flare Blitz understand, Head Smash not when you're not understand. It's insane. It's crazy. It's stupid. This is a stupid Pokemon. I don't know what Game Freak was thinking. I'm glad it's not as overpowered in OU, to my knowledge, as it is in Monotype. It's one of the best Pokemon for Rock. Stupid Mon. And I wouldn't change it for the world because I love it. But Cinderace. I think a lot of people were really kind of questioning Cinderace's, how good Cinderace was after the Libero nerf when he came back for Scarlet and Violet. But I don't agree with that. He's got Court Change if you want the utility, but I personally run Boots along with Pyro Ball, U-Turn, Sucker Punch, who is the final piece of the priority puzzle that you need. And last of all, you've got High Jump Kick for that really important fighting coverage. Just sucks against Ghosts because if you use it on a Ghost type, it counts as a miss, and there goes half of your health. But he's got an insane speed tier. 370 speed is enough speed to outspeed almost everything in the tier, so he's a phenomenal lead. 116 attack is not bad at all. Or 116 base attack is not bad at all, and you've got the moves and the stab on everything to take full advantage of all of the phenomenal physically attacking moves you got. And you can, if you don't feel like running these moves, which I don't know why you wouldn't, you also have Zen Headbutts, which is a good option, which is a good coverage option against things that you might not be able to do well against otherwise. But I prefer Pyro Ball personally. I think these last three are absolutely essential, but Pyro Ball could be swapped out for Zen Headbutt if you're feeling spicy. I don't know. I like clicking Fireball. I think this is my favorite Flutter Mane counter, as long as it doesn't have Power Gem, because 80 base HP is just enough bulk that you can survive one hit from almost anything that Flutter Mane has, whether it's Moonblast, whether it's, I don't know why you'd click Moonblast against this thing anyway, because it's Fire Resist Fairy for some reason, but Moonblast, Shadow Ball, and like Mystical, no one will click Mystical Fire, but like it just barely survives Flutter, Shadow Ball, and then one shot shots it with Pyro Ball. And if it's a bulkier Flutter and it doesn't one shot, you have Sucker Punch to finish the job. And especially if you use Pyro Ball first, you keep your Libero because you don't need to change into a Fire type to use a Fire type move. So you can use Pyro Ball, then Sucker Punch or U-turn, and kill whatever is threatening you. And I think it's the utility this thing has as a lead to scope out what the opponent's sending, and then fire off a stab U-turn on a 116 base attack that is almost always going to go first is so valuable that I consider if I were to do what most people do and make a splashable mandatory, I would move all of these guys down, and the only one left would be Cinderace. Because I think Cinderace is the only one that I would put on pretty much every team. I don't think I don't think I have any serious teams that I've built that have not had Cinderace. Because Cinderace is absolutely crazy. Also, did we fill up the box perfectly? Wow. Huh. That was not at all planned. Anyway, so yeah, Cinderace, he's absolutely crazy. Use him on your fire type teams. You will not be disappointed. He is going to carry your ass. So yeah, if I don't have my teams pulled up right now because I usually play on the desktop version. Actually, no, we'll pull up my teams real quick. Turn off this. Alright, so we go into Team Builder. These are my two teams right now. They need a little bit of revision. I'm probably going to swap out Skeletor for Volcanion and Sunless. But here's what we got. We got Talonflame for Defog and the Brave Bird Gale Wings. We've got Skeledirge. This was a pre-home set to beat other Skeledirges, which walled me before. Probably going to get swapped out for a Volcanion. I just figured out Cinderace because Cinderace is insane. Harknine with Choice Band because I needed the wall breaking power. Bulky Volcarona with Morning Sun, Quiver Dance, Bug Buzz, and Psychic. Because I don't really think you need Fiery Dance. I think Fiery Dance, a fast Fiery Dance user is probably going to be better with Iron Moth. Right here. But Bug Buzz and Psychic covers a lot of your weak spots that Fire can't really touch as well. Like Psychic for Clodsire or something. Like there's a lot of options. And so this is my favorite Sunless team. I've done quite well with it. I think that team laddered as high as I've laddered with it was low 1300 with this team. I think it's harder to play than my Sun team, which is right here. I actually don't think I have any real obvious things to swap out. I think I've built a fairly strong team. You've got Torkoal with Body Pest, Rapid Spin, Yawn, and Stealth Rock. I might swap out Zard for Typhlosion, but Zard is really nice to have Dragon Pulse and Air Slash. The only thing that's this team that is really walled this team is Heatran, but I've got Close Combat and High Jump Kick to take care of that. So like you got your Lagging Tail, Rotom Heat that I was talking about. I actually run a full mixed one with some special attack investment so that it can actually be a little threatening on its own. It's weird EVs, but I kind of like how it works. I might lean more into specially defensive. You got Harknine, which is my favorite Harknine set. I think Wild Charge is overrated, and there's nothing that you can click Wild Charge on that doesn't really die to Head Smash or one of the other moves. There's no real reason to use Wild Charge, especially because it's so weak. Like, what is it, 80 base power? Like, yeah, don't use Wild Charge. Or 90 base power. Wild Charge it's just not good enough. And you want extreme speed in close combat. I would choose, if you want Wild Charge, I would choose Wild Charge over close combat and keep extreme speed, unless you don't have Cinderace, which, what are you doing? You should have Cinderace. But yeah, so those are my teams. This one, it got me all the way to 1400 before I kind of threw and dropped down to 1300, in which case I started testing a lot of the other mons that I was still, because this was while I was still trying to determine the rankings, because like I had to play Houndoom and Arcanine and Camerupt and Flareon. I didn't really play much Flareon. I played like 2 games with Flareon, and I remembered why I can't even get Flareon to work in PU. And yeah, no bueno. So yeah, I don't think there's no reason to use anyone down here. You might find a reason to slot in one of these guys if you're desperate for an answer. These guys have ups but big downs that you have to be aware of. These have mostly ups, but they don't have enough up to be up here. Torkoal has a possibility of moving down there. I don't think Sunless is necessarily necessary. Talonflame could go up and swap with Skeledirge, who could come down. Armarouge might be down here. I'm not sure. Delphox is definitely down here. Oricorio might be unviable. I don't really know. You could consider Moltres to be unviable because there's no reason to use Moltres over either Zard or Talonflame. So yeah. That's all I have for you. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the YouTube things. It'll probably be a little while before I make another one of these. I've been playing almost exclusively Mono Fire this generation, so I would have to, you know, go out of my way to, or not like go out of my way, but like put a lot of time into playing the other ones, and I, you know, work a full-time job, and I got other games to play. I'm playing Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Oh yeah. All this discovery and playing the games was done on my Twitch channel, same as my YouTube channel. Go check me out. It's probably linked in the description. When I'm listening back to this to make sure I don't sound like an absolute fool, I'll probably remember that. Anyway, so see you later. Thanks for being here. If you made it to the end, comment potatoes make Skeledirge happy. Comment potatoes make Skeledirge happy if you made it all the way to the end, and hopefully I'll see you guys again. I upload a random shit on this channel, so have fun. Bye.